Okay. See, now that's more like it. All right, hang on with me while I get technical here, folks. The phone got stuck a little bit there. And I had to close the browser and reset. Okay. If you guys can see and hear me okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, Carlos. All right. Okay. I had to start a few minutes early. I got to run some errands later today before I take off on a trip over the weekend. So, hello everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number. Is this number 17 or number 18? My notes say 18, but I think it's number 17. This is the one about mastery and a little more on Jeet Kune interpretation. Okay, so Carlos is on here. Ricky, good to see you. All right, cool. Okay, let's get this started. I'm gonna do a little Bruce Lee quote that I found this morning. It says, "Many people dedicate their lives to actualizing a concept of what they should be like, rather than actualizing themselves. This difference between self-actualization and self-image actualization is very important. Most people live only for their image." So I want you to think about that and how that relates to the idea of mastery, and then we'll come back to it somewhat by the time we wrap up this broadcast. So Carlos ran an ad on the I Love Jeet Kune page for the Quick Skills series. For those of you who might not know about it, you can check it out at ilovejeetkundo.com. There's the free video tutorial course, and then if you enjoy that, you can go ahead and get the full Volume 1 series, right? So he runs the ad, and he actually uses the word master in the copy on the ad, right? And so we get a lot of interesting comments about the ad. And full disclosure, I and Carlos haven't been my student for many years. He knows that I'm someone who actually doesn't use the word master that often when it applies to martial arts. As a matter of fact, I have a very good friend, Taekwondo, leading Taekwondo instructor here in Miami, who teases me all the time because every time he sees me, he bows and he calls me Master Woods, and he knows that's like a pet peeve of mine when it comes to using that term, right? So anyhow, so somebody on the Facebook page says, well, how do you master something that is supposed to be constantly evolving? So my reply is that it's because mastery is not a destination. Like Jeet Kune itself, mastery is an ever ongoing, ever evolving process. So do not mistake the use of the word master or the word mastery when we use it here at I Love Jeet Kune for its classical meaning or usage in traditional martial arts, right? By which I mean, I believe that the title master is assigned to people after they are awarded like a 4th degree black belt or 5th degree black belt or something, right? So then the comment continues, so what exactly is mastering something? And I said, well, it's part of it is handling the inevitable plateaus one reaches by continuing on beyond that plateau. Because some people seem to think that mastery is a fixed stage at which you arrive after a period of practice, right? And I think that's influenced by what we just talked about. People in the classical martial arts are assigned or awarded the title master when they reach a certain fixed point in their martial arts training. That's not the mastery to which we are referring. It's part and parcel to one of our Jeet Kune maxims where we talk about aiming for perfection, because as you aim for perfection in what you're doing, that's where you acquire or attain proficiency, right? So then another comment appears from another guy, and he says, if you really love Jeet Kune, then learn from a real instructor at a real academy. There are no shortcuts to learning the real thing. It takes years of dedication and practice, all of which I agree with. And then he says, sad to see this advertisement. So my question is, where in the ad, because I think the ad says something like, do you want to master Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, right? Which, as a matter of fact, I should point this out also. Because then there are some people whose commentary is always, oh, well, you can't master Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do because you're not Bruce Lee. You have to master your own Jeet Kune Do. People, hang on a second. Who is the founder of Jeet Kune Do? Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee, apostrophe S, Jeet Kune Do, means the Jeet Kune Do method founded by Bruce Lee. That's all. It's just the possessive use, right, of the words. Nobody is saying that I, Dwight Woods, I'm trying to be Bruce Lee. I'm trying to master, right, being Bruce Lee. No, I try to master being myself. So it's just possessive case. That's all. So relax on that, hopefully from now on. So the guy says, you know, sad to see this advertisement, right? So I'm like, well, where in the ad that asks the question, right, if you want to master Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, does it imply that the video series is a shortcut? It doesn't, right? And also, this video series is designed for different types of Jeet Kune Do practitioners. There are some people who have invested in the series who are school owners, and they have done it because for them, it's another method to add to the store of their knowledge. So they're using it to punch up the curriculum at their own school. Then there are people who have bought it who are backyard or garage you know, practitioners. So maybe they have a little group, right? But then there's a majority of people, individuals out there in the real world who actually do not have access to a legitimate instructor or a legitimate school in their area. So the series is designed to fit the bill for numerous types of Jeet Kune Do practitioners. Right? So there's nothing in it that says this is a shortcut. This is that proverbial magic pill that everybody's looking for. No, that's not how things are done, right? Because a lot of people are not aware of this. But you know, I love Jeet Kune Do. We've got close to 75,000 people who interact with the page. We've got I forget how many people it is on the mailing list. I think it's somewhere like way past 9,000 people or whatever. And so because Carlos and I have insight into a lot of what is going on in the Jeet Kune Do world, I can tell you that there's not an abundance of Jeet Kune Do schools around the world. I got a question from somebody today about Jeet Kune Do in Australia. Now, I thought that everybody in Australia was aware of Jeet Kune Do, but apparently they are not. And the reason why I think that is because my teacher, Dan Inasano, I started training with him, as most of you know, in 1983. And he was already, if I remember correctly, he was already going to Australia back in the middle 80s. He was definitely there in the 90s. And so that's been going on for 20-something years. So I thought that everybody in Australia was aware of Jeet Kune Do, but apparently I'm wrong about that. So there's still not an abundance of Jeet Kune Do schools, especially if you compare them. You know, in the old days, we used to compare ourselves to the Taekwondo schools and the proliferation of Taekwondo schools. Well, there's still a lot of Taekwondo schools around. There's still a lot, probably more traditional karate schools than there are Jeet Kune Do schools. And then, of course, there's more MMA or BJJ or perhaps even Krav Maga schools than there are Jeet Kune Do schools, right? So another interesting thing about so the guy who was asking about the shortcuts and whatever is that I guess this other guy is a friend of his, and he says, you're right, that's called desperation and lack of knowledge. So I think this particular guy, because I know who he is referring to me. And what I find interesting is that I've seen actual ads or postings from him where he is referred to or refers to himself as Master so-and-so. So I might be desperate and lack certain knowledge, but at least I'm not a hypocrite. because I have never referred to myself as master of anything. And I'll tell you why. It comes from, it's either something that I heard Bruce Lee saying, or I heard Dan Inosanto saying about Bruce Lee, or something like that. But I'm paraphrasing here. But it is pretty much this. If you're on the planet and you're drawing a breath, then you are working on developing yourself. You're working on mastering yourself, right? So perhaps after they put, and this will show you how old a statement it is, perhaps after they put the last nail in the coffin, then maybe you take a look at what the person has achieved, what the person has accomplished, and then maybe you decide if you'll refer to that person as a master. But notice that it's not the individual referring to him or herself as a master. It's people who have been influenced or touched by this person during that person's lifetime. Then they decide to refer to him or her as a master hereafter, right? So this mastery thing, I've been talking and writing about this for over 30 years, right? And here's partially where it started. So there's a blog post, if any of you know my Seafood DW WordPress thing, there's a blog post from April of 1999, and I was talking about the topic of mastery by answering the question, when are people going to accept the simple truth that to become good at just about anything takes time? But actually, it goes back to way before 1999. So I've been practicing this. I hope I can do a better job of it. Okay, so here we go. Oh man, no, I still suck. Okay, Esquire magazine, and it's May 1987, right? May 1987, Mastery, the Secret of Ultimate Fitness, right? Okay, I just realized I didn't put a marker in the damn thing, so now I won't be able to find the article quickly. Anyhow, right? The idea is this, right? So this is May 1987. I had only been in Miami for 11 months. I hadn't even made it to a year here in Miami. So I didn't have a school, because I think if I remember correctly, we put a roof over our heads in April of 1988. But way back then, because I have no other copies of Esquire magazine, from my old subscription, other than this one. I knew that this thing about mastery is something that I should hang on to, because it would play a role. I would make use of it later on in life. And obviously I wasn't wrong, because it's 30-something years and we're talking about it today. So it's an article by George Leonard, and I found it very strange back then that he profiles like baseball players and I think even cyclists in talking about mastery, right? So I found it here, so hang on 1 second. All right, so this is the article, right? Playing for Keeps, the Face of Mastery in Sport and in Life, right? So this is not going to be the best way, because I still can't master this thing, right? So Leonard shows 4 approaches to mastery. Actually, it's not 4 approaches. There's 1 approach. The other 3 that we'll discuss in 2 minutes are not approaches, but it's just to explain and clarify this for you, right? So the 4 paths are mastery itself. Then there's a thing called the dabbler, a thing called the obsessive, and a thing called the hacker, right? So I'm going to do my best to show you from the magazine, right? So here is, see, I got to get this right at some point. Okay, I'll go on this site here. So here's the mastery line. So if you take a look at it, you'll see you start out in your training, then your level goes up, and then you plateau. So that's what that flat line is. And then your level goes up again, and then you plateau, and then your level goes up again, and then you plateau, right? And if you notice, as you stay on that mastery path, if you notice and I think I have pictures of this, so if Carlos can remind me, maybe I'll put pictures of it associated with the video post when we're done. But if you look at that mastery line, you'll notice that as you stay on the mastery path, the plateau, the period of time that you spend on the plateau shortens and shortens and shortens. That's because you're getting better and better at what it is that you're doing, right? So that's the first, so that is the mastery path. And that is a path that you do not come off of until you transition off the planet, right? So we're always on the path of mastery. The second one is the dabbler. So let me try to show you the illustration for the dabbler. So go this way, right? Get your fingers out of the way. So you see that one? So you start, you train, you plateau, you drop out. Then there's a period of time where you're gone, and then you come back and you start to train, your level goes up, you plateau, and now you spend an even shorter period of time and you drop out again, and then you come back to it, right? So any of the people who own martial arts schools, right? You recognize this guy called the dabbler. This is the guy that is always joining and quitting and joining again and quitting and joining again, right? I mean, you know, what can we say, right? Actually, okay, let me explain this to you, right? So some of you know I ran a school here for over 20 years, right? So I've got a couple decades of experience in dealing with students, right? Let's go back to the mastery path and the plateau, because what happens when people are on that plateau is that they do not realize that that's where they are. To use another one of my, well, not mine, but to use another Jeet Kune phrase, that's where they are becoming the art. See, a lot of people mistakenly think that plateau is where, that's where, like, in junior Jeet Kune for example, right? That's where the kids, when the kids reach a plateau, they go to the parents and they go, I don't want to go anymore because I'm not learning anything new, and they keep making me do the same thing over and over again. And then modern parents, right, who want to be their kids' best friends, right? I'm kidding, right? But they don't want to force the kids to do anything that they don't want to do, because they forget that if you don't force kids to brush their hair and I almost said, wait, it's comb your hair, right? No, you can brush your hair too. See, I don't have to worry about these things. But brush your teeth and wash your face and what have you. If you don't force kids to do that, they're not going to do it, right? So you do have to force kids. And as the adult, you don't want to abdicate the responsibility for showing kids the value to stick into things, right? And so the parents give in and they might let the kid drop out of school. And by the way, adults do this also, right? Everybody reaches that plateau and they think that they're getting nowhere, and so they quit, right? And as I said before, the whole process of level going up, plateau, level going up, plateau, level going up, plateau, that is what you'll be on for the rest of your life, right? So then the dabbler, like I said, is the guy who comes in, trains, drops out, comes back after a period of time, trains, drops out, and whatever, right? This is a guy who is sometimes on the search for what we called back in the old days of Glazer Kennedy marketing. He's in search of the next new shiny object, right? So there are people who you know, may have been in Jeet Kune Do at one point, and then when Jeet Kune Do was not as popular in out there with the public as maybe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became, or maybe as Krav Maga became, then they dropped their Jeet Kune Do training to go pursue the next shiny object of BJJ or Krav Maga, right? The third guy is, okay, so I got to try to do this again. Oh, wait, I forgot to do the thing for the shirt. All right, so there's the Jeet Kune Do shirt, right? Okay, so the next one, way down here at the bottom, do I have it? Yes, is the obsessive. So if you take a look at the obsessive, okay, that might be better, right? He comes in and he's training hard, and then you see how ragged his development is, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's the big drop off. The obsessive is the guy that wants to come to class every day, right? Wants to train in every program that you offer at your school, because what he thinks is that if he's training every day all the time, that somehow he's going to shorten his learning curve. And I mean, we all know that that's not what happens. And so invariably, the obsessive ends up overtraining and hurting himself, and he drops out, right? And then he moves on to something else, right? The fourth approach is, okay, the hacker, right? So that's the, where are we? There. Okay, I almost got it. That is, the hacker is the, as George Leonard says in the article, the hacker is content to perfect his mistakes, right? So a lot of times the hacker he's a nice guy. He might even be popular in the setting of the school or what have you. It's just that he lacks a certain degree of passion, and so he's content to stay at the same level for a long period, right? I mean, which is, it's, as Sifu Dan might say, it's better than nothing, right? So that's the, I don't know, there is Carlos, again, I'll ask you to remind me to put a link, because this is the article from Esquire, 1987, May 1987, but George Leonard did write a book about mastery, and so, you know, that's available on the Amazon and what have you. But there is also a link to an article about it. So if Carlos reminds me, I'll put that link in the post for me when we're done. Right? Okay. So that's my little treatise there on mastery. Right. So now a little bit more about interpretation, because I don't know if it's a coincidence, but right after the broadcast that we did about Jeet Kune Do interpretations, I got a question on Quora asking me, I haven't answered it yet, asking me what is my interpretation of Jeet Kune Do, right? Last night when we were in class, I was, kind of ruminating, and this stuff was going over in my head. I was like, there's no need to interpret Jeet Kune Do. We've got a lot of source material, right? We got books, we got videos, we got qualified instructors, people who were there with Bruce Lee. We got a lot of information. There is no need to interpret nothing, right? It's all out there for you. Just train the friggin' art. Okay, that's it, right? Interpret this, interpret that. That's crap, right? There's no need to interpret anything. But what I said in the broadcast was that what there are preferences, right? See, because look, Jeet Kune Do is a hugely democratic process, right? Everybody gets to contribute what it is that they have, what it is that they bring to the table. None of us are going to be identical to someone else, because we're all individuals, right? So let me give you an example, and maybe then we can bury this idea of interpretation also. So source material for this is, once again, Chris Kent and Tim Tackett's Jeet Kune Do kickboxing. And idiot me, I did not mark the page. Oh man. See, when I get too excited, then sometimes I forget to do stuff. Anyhow, it is the section here where Chris and Tim list what they call the defensive methods, all right? But see, I don't want to do it. I want to show you that I'm not making stuff up. You know what I mean? All right? Because sometimes, yeah. Okay, there we go. So in here, defensive tools and drills, right? So then, if you look at it, it says, man, get this right. There's distance, blocking and hitting, parrying and hitting, evasiveness and intercepting, right? Okay, so this is page 95 of the old school Jeet Kune Do kickboxing. So when I came across that, I thought, oh, because I'm OCD, right? I thought, okay, so we have the 5 ways of attack, and everybody knows about the 5 ways of attack in Jeet Kune Do. So I said, well, okay, what we'll do, we'll have 5 ways of attack, so we'll have 5 ways of defense also. But then at some point, I stopped calling it, or maybe I never even did really call it defense, because of this idea of, you know how sometimes people will ask you, oh, well, is your art offensive or defensive, right? Bless their souls, they don't know what they don't know what they're talking about, right? Because no art is completely defensive or completely offensive. And so as Bruce Lee would say, it's not this or that, it is this, right? You want to blend the two. It's not hard style or soft style, right? The answer is not two. So that's where I took to calling it the 5 methods of counter offense, right? Now, when I teach this, I indicate to people that number one, distance is not counter offense. It's not even good defense, because I mean, there are situations, right? And I'm sure Sifu Nick, who's on the broadcast, would attest to this. There are situations where putting some distance between you and the attackers might be the best idea, right? So I'm not, you can't rule out anything completely. But ordinarily, just put in distance between you and the attack, and then stand in there and letting somebody attack you again, right? So if you're just being defensive, right, and you keep letting them attack you, something's going to connect at some point. So distance is not good defense sometimes, and it's certainly not a counter-offensive method, right? But just so we kind of equalize with my OCD-ness, right? The 5 methods of attack, we have the 5 methods of defense, or 5 methods of counter-offense, right? So then number 2 is block and hit, which in Sifu Dan's book, it says that Bruce Lee referred to that as touch and go, right? Why? Because of the rhythm of it, right? I block and then I hit. So it's very, very classic, very, very common, right? All the Kung Fu styles, all the karate styles. I mean, in some instance, because of the situation, you will block first and hit second. So that's very common. But method number 3 is simultaneous parry and hit. And so the emphasis is on simultaneous, right? So at the same time. So it's not 1, 2, touch and go. It's 1. Both limbs moving independently, but simultaneously also. So we've got distance, we got block and hit, and then we have simultaneous parry and hit. Now, if you notice, in distance, let's say we use footwork to put distance between us and the attacker, right? But then in block and hit, you stand your ground. So now you're not using footwork to get out of the way. You stand the ground and you use a limb to defend and another limb to attack, right? Then simultaneous parry and hit borrows from block and hit, because you stand your ground, but now you use the limbs simultaneously, right? You see where I'm going with this? So then in method number 4, evade and hit, it has elements of method 1, which is distance, because now you might move the body. So you might use footwork to adjust your position. But now, method number 4, evade and hit, does not make use of 2 and 3 because the limbs aren't involved. I might bob and weave under something and come back out, right? I might angle off and cut, kick, or what have you. So now I'm blending elements of method 1 in order to produce method 4. See, so I'm not completely discarding or disregarding any of them. Method 5 is the stop hit or the interception. The very concept that gives the art its name. So the reason why, so I mean, I'm not teaching anything here that nobody knows. When we go to the stop hit, you've got to gauge the distance. You've got to you quickly recognize the angle of attack or the line of attack, right? And then you got to even more quickly choose the correct, the corresponding stroke to perform the interception. So if you look at it, right? Another reason why I did this is it was to employ this concept of the ladder of proficiency or the ladder of skill. So down at the bottom rung is distance. Then the rung above that is block and hit. The rung above that is simultaneous parry and hit. The rung above that is evade and hit. And then the top rung is the stop hit or the interception. See, because what I wanted to do was to give my students a visual so that they could see how Jeet Kune, right, how intercepting is the highest level. You want to aspire upwards to the Jeet Kune level. You know what this is like? Where were we? Oh, no, I was watching an old, and this is something that we'll put up on the page also. It was November 27th. It happened to be a Saturday, November 27th, 2010. And we had what we call a birthday celebration for Bruce Lee, his 70th birthday. And so it was a Q&A session, an extended Q&A session with me and my students, right? And we were talking about the concept of becoming Jeet Kune Do, which might become a topic for another broadcast, right? So the idea of becoming Jeet Kune Do, it's like I go to law school and I study and I get my degree, and then I come out and I get a job at a law office, right? And now so what am I doing? All of that studying and what have you was part of the process of becoming a lawyer. I wasn't doing lawyering, or I wasn't taking lawyering, right? I was studying training, and now I am in the process of, now I've become a lawyer, right? But now I don't stop there, because now I have to establish a career. Well, Jeet Kune Do, I think that Bruce Lee tried to perhaps promote an idea such as that, which is why there is talk about becoming Jeet Kune Do. So Carlos will tell you that back in the days when I was really, really more of a DICK than I am now, like I would refuse to talk to people who were like, oh, well, where do you take your Jeet Kune Do, right? And I was like, I don't take it, right? Because, what, I take it and I put it somewhere, right? Anyhow, long story short, right? So becoming Jeet Kune Do is what we're talking about, right? So using the analogy of the ladder of proficiency, that was the goal, to show people that Jeet Kune Do is the highest level. So we aspire to operate at that highest level of our capabilities, right? So if I'll tell you one last thing, right? Because I made a note here. So this is what makes the art of the pursuit of Jeet Kune Do is a method towards higher levels of understanding, of living, of thinking, of performing, etc. And so if you think that the pursuit of those ideals is not the pursuit of mastery, then you don't understand what mastery is. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks, guys, for signing in and spending some time with me here. I'm still taking requests for different topics. I got a request. This one's really difficult to do, but I got a request to show trapping, but I can't really show trapping on a broadcast, right? So, but that will come up in a video series sooner, if not later. But topics for discussion on the broadcast are always welcome. I've lapsed in doing the Jeet Kune Do thing that I hate and the Jeet Kune Do thing that I like, because really, there's not that much about Jeet Kune Do that I hate. All right, and then the reading of a page of the Tao, it really is something that. But I might skip around and do kind of like my teacher does. Anybody who's been on seminar with him will know what I'm talking about, and do pages from different Jeet Kune Do books rather than limiting ourselves to just the Tao. Anyhow, everybody, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll put this up on the page and get it out to you. And everybody have a good afternoon. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off.